Hey, what's up guys? Today I am very excited to announce the next project on this channel. This is going to be a Dakota Rt autocross build and I can't wait. Okay, for all you 12 valve guys, I just have to say, don't worry, there's still going to be a ton of 12 valve content on this channel. Still so many projects to get into that truck, and we're going to be going on adventures and road trips and all kinds of stuff with that, so don't worry. But in the next little while, we're going to start having quite a bit more content with the Dakota Rt, doing autocross racing and starting to pick away at building this truck. And anyways, let's jump in and show you guys some of my plans. If you're new to the channel, this is my 99 Dakota Rt. I bought this a couple of years ago for $2,000. There was definitely some expenses in getting it to pass the inspection process and getting it shipped to British Columbia, but overall I got this thing super cheap. It's kind of funny, I think I bought this truck and my 12 valve right at the bottom of the market. I bought the 12 valve for less than $4,000 for a rust-free 12 valve dually, four-wheel drive. The prices in the last little while seem to be just absolutely going through the roof. So you might be asking yourself, why autocross and why a Dakota Rt? Well, I have got two other projects that are kind of waiting in the wings. I've got pretty much everything I need to turn the Xterra into a rock crawler, but there's going to be a lot of metalworking involved in that, and I just don't have the garage space. I've also got the old Mack truck, and that thing is going to be it's going to need a lot of stuff. I'm planning on doing an engine swap, different axles, all that kind of thing. It's going to be a major project, and again, in my tiny one-car garage, it just ain't happening. So right now I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm choosing autocross for this truck. At some point I would love to get into drifting, I would love to get into drag racing. Both of those are not quite perfectly suited to this truck. A lot of people are going to disagree with that. There's lots of Dakotas that go to drag racing. But the thing I really like about autocross is that this thing already has enough power. I'm sure there'll come a time when I've got more traction than power, but that time is not now. I don't need to worry about superchargers or heads or any of that kind of stuff at the moment. That stuff is all super expensive, and for right now, to be able to jump into something and really have fun and get after it, you know, for just a few little basic items, you know, I can start picking away at it a little bit. You know, the parts that I need aren't insanely expensive at the moment. You know, in my tiny garage, I can sort of make it work with this. It's right there in front of me. Summer's coming. You know, it's a good way to get prepared for doing track days and that kind of thing, either with this vehicle or another one in the future. But it just feels like this is the best step in front of me to start getting into some sort of automotive sport. So let me tell you, these trucks are not fast. It's kind of a fun experience driving them though. They have a 392 rear end. The cam is all about off-idle torque. I think it has a red line of like 4,700 RPM or something, which is very low. These trucks came from the factory with a 5.9 liter V8, which is pretty rare actually for a tiny little truck like this to come with a good size engine. Being from the 90s, there wasn't the same kind of horsepower going around those days as there is today. You know, I'm sure if they released this again, it would probably have, you know, 400 or 500 horsepower, but I think this one had, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 240 horsepower and 350 foot-pounds of torque. As far as I know, the truck is bone stock, except for this little chip of some kind. I don't know if this is adding horsepower or doing anything, but it was on there when I got it, and in addition to that, it has a MagnaFlow exhaust, or at least a MagnaFlow muffler. I'm not sure about the other stuff. So this particular truck only has about 156,000 kilometers on it, which I think is less than 90,000 miles. Pretty good for a 23-year-old truck. It has definitely been bumped around a little bit. There's some body damage on it. When I got it, it had a red bumper. You know, it wasn't in perfect shape, and my first thoughts was that I wanted to kind of strip the interior out and turn it into kind of a sketchy race car. you know, do a bit of drag racing and drifting and all that kind of stuff. Probably an LS swap and twin turbos, and I was just thinking about all this big power and stuff. Once I got it though, I was just so surprised about how perfectly it ran. The interior is essentially perfection in this truck. I mean, it's starting to have a couple of issues. The power windows have some problems. I've got to get that sorted out, but in general, when you're driving this truck, I mean, it feels brand new, and I just cannot bring myself to tear it up and put a different engine in there. For those of you who have been following along with the 12-valve build, I mean, that is a pretty extensive project, but essentially bolt-ons. It was the same motor that I pulled out and the same tranny just went back in, rebuilt, and the amount of struggles that I'm having trying to make that thing just function properly is amazing. Like, I can't imagine just giving up this perfect running and driving truck for LS power and just having to deal with all the crap and fuel pumps and cooling systems and everything else. I want to do all that kind of stuff, but I think more in a drift car or something that I don't really care as much about, because this truck is just such a perfect driving experience. I'm not really prepared to mess that up. So when I bought this truck, it had a red bumper. This truck was originally from British Columbia, which is where I live. But when I got this bumper, it didn't have any holes for the license plate, and I jokingly just attached it here, and all this time's gone by and I've never moved it. So as many of you guys know, I just went in my first autocross event. I'm going to be doing another one this week, and right now I got to start jumping into getting this thing ready. I learned a lot. I was not competitive as a driver or with my vehicle, I'll tell you that. So I had major tire problems in the last autocross I went in. These are Michelin Defender LTX M&S. As you can see by the zigzag siping and the fact that it's close together, this is not a winter tire, but they're trying to make something that would be properly all season. Let's just put it that way. These tires, when you're driving down the highway, you know, and there's a big puddle or, you know, scary wet conditions, these things are great. You go in an autocross event and oh my God, I had problems like you would not believe. You know, hit the gas, the rear tires are chirping and squealing, try and dive into a corner and turn the wheel and just understeer like you wouldn't believe. So I will fully acknowledge that my lack of driving ability is probably a huge part of it. I'm sure you get some top tier driver in there and they would have done better than me, no questions asked. However, these tires are good in a lot of situations, but I think we can agree that that is not ideal for performance driving. So in come the Goodyear Forterra HL. Now, this is not really a performance tire either, but I had some of these on my truck a while ago, and I'll tell you, this is by far the best performing tire I have ever experienced in my life of driving trucks. These things are so much more confidence inspiring. You know, they're definitely still an all season. You know, I'm sure I'll find the limits of them pretty quickly, but this is going to be a huge improvement. And the most important part, ding, 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 I got them for $100. So right now my goals in the autocross world are just to get better and to get my truck set up better. In the last autocross event, my best time was 59.2, and the fastest lap of the day was done in a Honda S2000, and that was 49.7. So I was a whopping 9.5 seconds off the fastest lap of the day. Now, we can blame a lot of that on crappy driving on my part. We can blame a lot on tires. The body roll on this thing is absolutely insane. But honestly, the power was there, and it'd be interesting to see this thing set up. You know, how much of that time could I get back? So it is today, Tuesday. I've got an autocross event on Friday, and then on Sunday we're doing an introduction to autocross, where it's kind of an opportunity for people like me to learn a little bit and try and improve at driving. And let me tell you, I do need a lot of improvements. There is some things on the truck though that I can do to start getting ready for this autocross event, and I think this is probably going to help. So first thing, which I think is going to make the biggest difference, obviously I've got these tires on and installed. I'm really excited about how much better the handling is on these. Now I get that compared to a performance set of tires or compared to a summer only tire, these things are nothing. Trust me, I get it. However, I've done a little bit of tests with this since I got them on, and I can tell you that the difference is definitely noticeable. I can just crank on the steering wheel, and I'm not hearing any chirping. It just doesn't feel like it wants to slide. And I've tried a couple of launches in these, and they're definitely a lot less likely to spin. So I can rev it up to about 1500 RPM with my foot on the brake and, you know, honk on the gas, and this thing is just taking off instead of spinning like a wild animal. So both of these tires are actually technically the same size. So as you can see there, 245, 65, 17. These are the Michelins. And then the tires on the truck, the Goodyear Forterra HL, these are 245, 65, 17. So technically the same size. Now, oddly enough, these tires are not really the same size. I actually measured them, and let me just double check that now, but I'm pretty sure the Goodyear, the actual tread width is something like 10 or 15 or 20 millimeters wider than the tread width on this one. So hard to hold both of these at once, but basically I would say less than 195 millimeters of tread width on this one. So these ones are definitely a bit wider. I think that's right around 215, 220 millimeters. So that's not necessarily a huge amount, but I mean, it's enough, and I'm sure every little bit helps. So personally, I have experienced that those Goodyears feel like they have dramatically better performance on dry pavement. It'll be interesting in an autocross environment to see if that translates to any better time though. And speaking of which, I wanted to kind of talk about my strategy a little bit for the season. I don't even really know what class I'm in. Because this thing has a V8 and a chip, I definitely get dinged some points if I was competing against somebody else. And that's definitely something to factor in. For me, I really enjoy going out and doing it, and I want to keep doing that. And, you know, I'm not really going to get too hung up on the competitive side of it for now. Mostly, I just want to try and measure myself against the best lap of the day that anybody did. So the first time around, I was 9.5 seconds off, and my goal is just going to be to try and chip some time away off that. If we can get down to 8 seconds from the best time, or whatever it ends up being, then that's great. We're moving in the right direction, and right now that's all I really care about. So in terms of mechanical stuff, the biggest things that I'm going to be focusing on right now is the brakes. You might remember in a recent video I gave these brakes a pretty thorough overhaul. New calipers, new wheel cylinders, a couple new brake lines, all new brake hoses, and probably a couple other things in there, but that's all I can think of. I just did the standard bleeding process, you know, going from the farthest wheel to the closest one, but there definitely is a bit of a soft pedal. So in my Dodge Ram, I actually go through and put some pressure on the brake lines, like have somebody hold the brake down, and I crack each one of these fittings in the sequence that's in the manual. And I'm going to go ahead and do that, and hopefully that will give me a firmer pedal, and I can be a lot more aggressive diving into corners and, you know, braking at the last second. And just being able to do that should definitely shave some time off. So I think the next biggest improvement I can do is getting rid of this tonneau cover. Hilariously, I left this thing on because I thought, being a truck, you know, it would probably have a lot of oversteer. When I got there and saw that guys were rolling down their windows to get a lower center of gravity, I just started absolutely howling, because I've got this thing on here. I don't know the exact weight, maybe it's 75 pounds, maybe it's 150, but it is heavy. And between this and the box liner, I am definitely going to be pulling that off. And I'm going to ask and see if I can pull the tailgate off. I'm not sure what the rules are like, but hopefully they'll let me do that, because that's a whole bunch more weight too. In addition to this tonneau cover being very heavy, it is also very high up. So I had massive body roll problems, and getting that weight off of there from that high up is only going to be a good thing. So speaking of body roll, I am super excited to announce that the parts buying has begun. I've ordered a lowering kit for this truck. Actually, I've just ordered lowering blocks for the rear. I'm going to go down 3 inches on the rear, and then I'm going to cut the coils on the front. I'm going to see how that plays out, and then we'll take our next step from there. When I had the 12 valve build, I jumped into that thing head over heels. I probably ordered 50 grand in parts before I had even really gotten started on doing anything, and the spending after that has just gone on and on and on. Let me tell you, that has been a really expensive project, but I want to just tiptoe into this thing for now. At some point, if I get real serious about this, I might want to change the suspension system altogether and go a 3-link with a panhard bar on coilovers or whatever. So I'm just going to start as simple and basic as possible, and that is lowering blocks and cut coils on the front. On the front and rear sway bars, we're going to have poly bushings, as well as the rear leaf springs and the front control arms. So I got all that kind of stuff. For some reason though, they list the rear sway bar as being 9/16 and it's actually 21 millimeters. So unfortunately I had to buy the kit for that so that I can have the sway bar end link bushings, but I also had to buy these generic 21 millimeter sway bar bushings. So it's kind of too bad that I had to purchase something extra, but luckily there was an Easter sale, so I got a bit of a deal on that. Unfortunately, none of these things are going to be in time for this first autocross event. So I came this close to ordering the Beltec Street Performer shocks. They have specific ones that are designed for vehicles that are lowered a certain amount. But the reality is, like I said, I just went too big too quick on the 12 valve build. A, it's nice to not have to spend the money, but B, I just want to see how does each thing affect the handling. This truck with such low mileage, I mean, these shocks are not designed for hardcore performance stuff, but they're not exactly bagged out old hunks of junk either. So in the meantime, I'm going to get the lowering kit in, I'll get the poly bushings in, drive it around a bit, get a feel for it, and then we're going to make the decision of do I get some Beltecs or maybe jump up to the QA1s, which get really good reviews, or possibly just hold off for like a proper coilover setup or something. For now, I'm not going to get too blown out of shape. I'm just going to tiptoe into this thing, take it one step at a time. Hopefully we're watching the times improve in the autocross events, and we're just going to sort of let nature take its course. I'll be honest with you, I just loved the idea of being out in this vehicle, and you know, the handling wasn't there, but in terms of power, I was barely even touching the throttle, and I just really enjoyed the fact that I could sort of get after it with a basically stock vehicle. Now again, I know I'm not competitive. I'm not competitive as a driver. This truck's not competitive. Whatever, I don't really care. It's just fun to be able to jump into a project, try and get better at driving, and try to you know, get this truck a little bit closer to being something that is purpose-built for autocross. So right now it is time to get this thing home, start working on it and getting ready for this event, and we'll see how it feels and if there's any improvements. So let's go.